think you own whatever land you land on. The earth is just a dead thing you can claim. But I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. You think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll learn things you never knew, you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue-corn moon? Or ask the grinning bobcat why he grins? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Come run the hidden pine trails of the forest. Come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come roll in all the riches all around you, and for once never wonder what they're worth. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The heron and the otter are my friends, and we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends. How high does a sycamore grow? If you cut it down, then you'll never know. And you'll never hear the wolf cry to the blue-corn moon, for whether we are white or copper-skinned, we need to sing with all the voices of the mountain. We need to paint with all the colors of the wind. You can own the earth and still all you'll own is earth until you can paint with all the colors of the wind.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Corinne Dowd. Welcome to our Earth Day service. I'll be sharing a poem called Living Our Climate Justice Values. Bless our home, our beautiful Mother Earth. We must honor and uphold her sacred worth. The climate crisis is escalating, getting more dire. More floods, droughts, storms, and wildfires. How can we take impactful action? Perhaps protesting hydraulic fracking, or lying in a trench, blocking pipelines, getting arrested, making headlines. Recycle, compost, plant a garden, cut fossil fuels, draw down carbon. Inhale perseverance until it permeates our soul. Exhale power to reach a net zero goal. The land and people are so interconnected. Many injustices still need to be corrected. Imagine if our values shined brighter than the sun, forging a better and just world for everyone.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
And it is my privilege to say good morning, everyone. Let me see your lips move. Good morning. I want you to do it a little louder. Good morning. And with all due respect to the Environmental Justice Committee and Vernon and everybody else, I think we can just go home after Needy's prelude, because she killed it. And that was just exactly what was our message for the day. And I just hope we get to see and listen to that over and over again. Welcome, everybody. Welcome those who are here for the very first time. If you're with us for the first time and want to stay in touch, please go to our website, and there is a contact form there, and we'd love to have you be part of our vibrant community, vibrant, albeit virtual. We are increasingly having some events happen outside, but nevertheless, it's good for all of us to be together. Let's see, I have, I believe, 5 announcements, count them. Announcement number 1, there is a Lyceum today at 4 p.m. and its topic is cybersecurity, what to look out for and how to protect yourself. And you know, if you're ever in doubt about how to find the Zoom link, again, go to the webpage and look at the calendar section, and typically under the calendar section, there are Zoom links for most of our events. And so we hope to see many of you at 4 o'clock for the Lyceum. Next Sunday is Music Sunday. This is number 2 if you're keeping count. And immediately following the Music Sunday service, there will be an important congregational meeting at 11:45. All members are to be there or be square. And again, I ask the question, tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. I'm glad you're still able to do that. Number 3, yes, you are going to get a stewardship moment today, but as always, the message at this time of the year is, people, come on, wake up. If we don't hear from you, other people are going to have to call you, and there will be a lot of whining and pleading. And so, you know, please just do it, please. And be generous, because it ain't going to be easy to do what you say you want to do. This isn't me talking. I mean, what do I care about this? This is what you say. This is what you say you want this community to be about. So put your money where your mouth or your heart or your check writing pen hand may be. Number 4, this week, we talked last week about UU Mass Action, and this week UU Mass Action is offering a training on leading great meetings tomorrow, Monday at 6 o'clock p.m., which will have a focus on incorporating anti-racist, anti-oppression lenses to leading meetings. And UU Mass Action is also offering their next UU North Metro West Regional Team meeting on Wednesday, April 28th, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Again, you'll find the Zoom link. This is an opportunity for parishioners to connect with other UU parishioners and area congregations about justice issues. Today's service is again sponsored by our Environmental Justice Committee, and it is not to be mistaken for some standalone once-a-year service observed somehow near Earth Day. This is a year-round priority for our congregation. And our special guest speaker today is the Reverend Vernon Walker, who has been a friend and a colleague in so many ways. And formally, I say unto you, number 5, Reverend Vernon K. Walker was originally born and raised in Philadelphia. He attended Penn State University for college, where he earned a Bachelor of Science with a major in organizational leadership and a minor in psychology. That's not a bad combination for a minister. In 2012. And after graduating, he attended Boston University School of Theology and earned a master's degree in theological studies in 2016. During this time, he also took courses at the Harvard Divinity School on nonprofit leadership. Reverend Walker completed coursework toward a master in social work with a focus on social justice and macro social work practices at Boston University. While a member of the Baraha Church in Dorchester for 4 years, Reverend Walker helped to develop the Social Action and Outreach Department. Currently, he is a member of the SEED Committee. This is sort of like our Social Responsibility Council, but with a sexier name, at the Pentecostal Tabernacle Church in Cambridge. Vernon's been a policy director with the Young Democrats in Massachusetts. He and I have worked together on the Poor People's Campaign with a good many of you as well. And he's been the program director of CREW, C-R-E-W, Communities Responding to Extreme Weather. Some of you have attended his CREW workshops and seen his astonishing, hugely discouraging maps. And well, here in Boston, you're gonna need to learn how to swim. Vernon has been a great friend to this congregation and to congregations that are trying to make a difference in social justice, and it's great to have you with us this morning, Vernon. And now Annie has an announcement about small groups that will offer opportunities to process their thoughts and feelings about my departure. I won't be at those meetings, but I will be able to provide party hats and other party gear for those meetings. Annie, why don't you tell us about those?
Yes, thank you. So I hope that you've seen an email, but there will be another coming soon, encouraging you to sign up on a Sign Up Genius that I will also put in the chat for a small group to talk about your feelings about John's departure. These groups, as John said, they won't include John or myself. They will be run by parishioners who have had a training to run them, and they'll just be an opportunity to share what you're feeling and thinking, and ask a few questions if you have some confusion about any of the processes or boundaries. So I really recommend that you check it out and sign up for a group. They're happening very soon in late April and in early May, so find a time that works for you. All right.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Kia Nickel, for those who don't know me. Annie and the Stewardship Committee asked me to step up and say a few words about what First Parish means to me. So the story of First Parish and me is a story about my children. You see, I had a UU friend who talked about her experiences teaching OWL, and I decided that I really wanted my kids to have the opportunity to do our whole lives when I had them. So a bit after Catherine was born, Catherine is doing my filming today, I looked at the websites for UU churches near where we were living at the time in Billerica. And I immediately decided to check out First Parish with its dedication to accessibility, its pride flags, and the emphasis it put on its music program. I figured I wanted to build up relationships with the community over time, even though I'm kind of bad at that sort of thing. And I loved First Parish. It was a place I could come and be secure that someone would be giving a sermon on a topic that I had been trying to talk with people about in my other religious communities. Or I could lurk up on the balcony and hide most of the time. John and Megan at the time welcomed me and several other family members. An offhand comment from one of my partners turned into John's zombie sermon one Christmas. And I muddled along on the edges until, alas, we moved to Andover. And I spent a few years in Andover saying to myself, I gotta get back to First Parish. And not doing it until, again, Catherine says to me one day, Mama, what is a God? And I said, I've got to get this kid into religious education. So we came back. 3 out of 4 kids are in the RE program now. Monkey number 2 is focusing on Hebrew school instead. and I taught the 6th and 7th graders for over a year and a half or so, and hope to again in the future. Once I was coming back regularly, I signed the book and made my stewardship pledges, and I continue, maybe a bit awkwardly, to herd the monkeys around coffee hour and when we have coffee hour and be a part of the community. And I've watched Catherine grow from someone who was willing to help, but too shy to actually speak up, to one of the flautists in the recent video ensemble that we had a few Sundays ago. I still hold out hopes that someday the kids' schedules will settle down enough that I might be able to join the choir. And of course, Catherine did owl for pre-adolescents the last time we held it, which was the plan 10 years ago when I was looking for websites in a church to join. Do you girls want to say anything?
Hi.
I think Robin wants to say something.
Love church.
Okay.
Does Robin want to say hi to church?
I think we don't need a Robin. Thank you, Catherine.
Welcome.
Now can I eat my bar?
The Earth Book by Todd Parr. I take care of the earth because I know I can do little things every day to make a big difference. I use both sides of the paper and bring my own bags to the market because I love the trees and I want the owls to have a place to live. I turn off the faucet while I brush my teeth and use less water for my baths because I love the fish and I want the oceans to stay blue. I take the school bus and ride my bike because I love the stars and I want the air to be clear so I can see them sparkle. I try to eat every bite on my plate and save my leftovers because I love watching things grow and I want there to be enough food for everyone. I remember to turn off the lights and shut the refrigerator to save energy because I love the polar bears and I want the snowman to stay cool. I throw garbage in the trash can and recycle glass, aluminum, paper, and plastic because I love to walk barefoot in the grass and I don't want to move to Mars. Most of all, I help take care of the earth because I want us all to be happy and healthy. Every one of us can help protect the earth and make it feel good. Remember, if we take care of it, it will take care of us. Love, Todd. Open here for your own Go Green poster. The ways I can help the earth: turn off the lights, recycle, save my leftovers, be nice to the worms, share a book, plant a tree, use both sides of the paper, save water, clean up trash.
Hello, everybody. This is Janet, and I'm going to share with you a reflection that I've made. And I'm going to ask everybody to either close your eyes or lower them, or maybe stare out the window while I read, and just put your focus on what you hear. Land matters, all land, forest and prairies and farmlands. Even our little slice of tidy suburban green matters. Land is the source of our being, maybe not the very beginning of our being, some call source, maybe not the original swishing and swirling of life in the oceans, microbes, mitochondria, and photosynthesis. But eventually that life found rock and created life on land. Life works together, a multitude of partners in a dance of giving and receiving, moment by moment, birthing, growing, being, dying. Here on land, the first to arrive were lichen, then plants, crawling fish, reptiles, giant amphibians, dinosaur birds, and who became birds. Tiny rodents burrowed down in the ground, deep and safe in the soil, that fed and sheltered them from a fiery storm. Rodents to primates, then human beings emerged. Whether from holes in the ground or swinging in the treetops, it is from the land we are made. It is to the land we will return. Whether your faith grows through Darwinian evolution or God, Mother Earth or presence, or perhaps faith plays no role at all, it is still from land we are made. This land, our common, once supported uncountable numbers of beings, a mosaic of humans and non-humans. The indigenous people, Pawtucket and Massa Achu Aset, gained sustenance from this land. Here they sat in community, shared their love, honored the gifts and heeded the cycles, living as part of the life around them. Until the people of this land were ripped from their lifeblood by colonists who floated in from the east, growing what is called a Western culture, lacking any sense that it is from the land which they came and made them who they were. Instead, they carried a flag of manifest destiny, a birthright to own, dominate, and extract. Our cultural lineage, colonialism, genocide, slavery, consumerism, living to take and grow monetary wealth, a human race racing to the top on the backs of fellow earth dwellers, human brothers and sisters, creatures great and small, plants and soil, the very rock and minerals of which earth is made. And now we sit upon this hill. Climate change is real. Earth cycling has gone awry due to our ways of being, our ways of taking. We need new technology to make the shift, to help sustain our species, as well as the slew of life we are dragging down with us. We must shift to energy renewable, and we must also begin to tend to life, to embrace full-blown, wild, abundant, elemental cycling, nutrient growing nature, not just out there somewhere, but here and there and everywhere. Every inch of land is precious and full of life potential. We have for too long treaded heavily on all that sustains us, where land is bare soil or pavement, chemically treated, tilled, and manicured. Life diminishes. We tell ourselves we need to be practical, save face, time, and money, live in the real world. But actually, the real world is nature. When we choose to truly reside as part of the interconnected web of existence, we choose abundance, diversity, and connection. So let's get real. It's time to awaken to the practice of living in relationship, life symbiotic, and to receive. We must give. It is time to follow the lead of Afro-Indigenous farmers who express love for all through their tender land care, honorable harvest, and the deepest of gratitude. As we switch from dominance to cooperation, life will spiral up and out, growing and expanding. We know this to be true. Western science catching up to Indigenous knowledge. The gifts of the commons, clean air and water, food and shelter, a livable climate and water stability can regenerate when we treat the land and the life that dwells upon it as if they matter. And then this community upon this common, and communities throughout Earthland can live in full bloom and dance in reciprocity once again. May it be so.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots that make laws, wings that be free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla luar, sube amar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Fuente de amor, ven a mí, come to me, come to me.
As our Reverend John Gibbons often notes, with various challenging, thought-provoking, and sometimes humorous words, the gift of giving, not hoarding, is a path to helping make a difference in the world. So please give what you can spare and more if you are able. It really is important to the life of this church and beyond. To quote Mother Teresa, we ourselves feel that what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean would be less because of that missing drop. Freely we have received, freely give. Our offering will now be gratefully received by any means you choose. Thank you.
Vernon, I think it goes over to you now. It's time to go to work. Vernon Walker, our preacher today.
Yes, yes. Good morning. Good morning. I'm hippopotamus glad and elephant happy to be here with you all on this morning. With such wonderful renditions of musical selections and performances and dances and things of that nature to help uplift us in trying times such as these. To my friend and wonderful co-laborer in the work of social justice, the Reverend John Gibbons, the Reverend Annie. So glad for your leadership at the church, and to the wonderful folks, that make up this faith community. Thank you for being here this morning, and I'm just honored and delighted to be with you all this morning. I begin my remarks related to the celebration of Earth Day. For those who don't know, Earth Day was founded in 1970, a while ago, as a day of education about environmental issues. And this year, it was on April 22nd, which was the holiday's 51st anniversary. Historically, it was the brainchild of Senator Gaylord Nelson, a Democrat from Wisconsin, who was elected in 1962. And he was inspired by the protests. He was inspired by the anti-war protests. Earth Day began as a national teach-in on the environment and was held originally on April 22nd to maximize the number of students that could be reached on a university campus, if you're wondering why April 22nd was selected. The intention, sisters and brothers, of Earth Day, what Senator Nelson had in mind was to raise the public awareness of pollution. He hoped to bring environmental causes into the national spotlight. Now, the holiday since 1990 has been celebrated globally. And in fact, in 1990, it was 200 million people in over 140 nations participating in that year's Earth Day, according to the Earth Day Network, which is a nonprofit organization that coordinates Earth Day activities. In 2000, Earth Day focused on clean energy and involved hundreds of millions of people in 184 countries and 5,000 environmental groups, according to the Earth Day Network. Activities range from traveling, taking drum chain in Ghana, Africa, to the gathering of hundreds of thousands of people at the National Ball in Washington, D.C. Today, Earth Day Network collaborates with more than 17,000 partners and organizations in 174 countries. According to the Earth Day Network, more than 1 billion people are involved in Earth Day activities, making it the largest secular civic event in the world. But we can't stop there. We can't just park our car for 1 week and become happy environmentalists and then go on throughout the rest of the year sitting on a seat of do nothing, whistling to the tune of do less. But I don't have to tell you all that, because you all are very active in environmental justice issues and social justice issues, and that's what I appreciate. In 2021, this Earth Day, this Earth Week was different. This week was a climate summit that President Biden announced on Friday that the United States would revive its participation in the initiative among dozens of nations and investors to increase government budgets for renewable energy research and development and deployment. This is a sign of hope, but we can't stop there. The program, Mission Innovation, was spearheaded by former President Barack Obama and Bill Gates, a Microsoft founder, in parallel with the Paris Agreement on climate change in 2015. Certainly, as we know, when Donald Trump became president, he abandoned the Paris Agreement and sought to roll back most of the funding for the renewable energy in the United States, mission innovation, and because of such, mission innovation faded from view. However, achieving these monumental goals of giving more budgets to renewable energy research, development, and deployment, the U.S. would have to make a substantial overhaul of current domestic policies, according to energy experts, who say that the country would need to virtually eliminate its use of coal for electricity and replace millions of gas line powered cars with electric vehicles if we are to accomplish the goals that have been set out by President Biden in this week's climate summit. Sisters and brothers, we're living in some tumultuous and difficult days, the likes of which we've never seen before. Certainly, we know that the climate crisis is in front of us as we see many of the effects of climate change, such as hurricanes and extreme heat waves and sea level rise, etc. What's also on the rise is racism, sexism, ageism, classism, xenophobia, and other forms of oppression. Not to mention that there is a global pandemic that has affected millions of people across the world. And unfortunately, unfortunately, 3 million people, a little over 3 million people have unfortunately succumbed to this virus worldwide, and over 545,000 Americans have died. These are perilous times. However, the preeminent social justice issue of our time, I believe, is climate change. The planet is in a great state of distress because of climate change. The climate crisis represents an urgent and existential threat to civilization, with the international consensus of scientists agreeing that humanity must drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45% in 2030 and reach net zero emissions by 2050 if the world is to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit without endangering the existence of humans. Recently, a report was released in the last few months by scientists at Harvard and 3 British universities that reported that fossil fuels are the cause of 9 million deaths worldwide and 350,000 deaths in the US annually. These certainly are turbulent times. From the shifting weather patterns that threaten our food production to the rising sea level that increase the risk of catastrophic flooding, the impacts of climate change are global in scope and unprecedented in scale. It is dangerous in reality to all natural ecosystems. Climate change is the defining issue of our time, and we are at a defining moment. Certainly, if human beings don't take drastic action today, adapting to these climate impacts in the future will be more challenging and costly. Certainly, when we talk about climate change, some people think it's a issue that's divorced from other social justice issues and an issue that's set apart from other social justice issues. Or when we think about, when some folks think about climate change, they think about something far and away. However, what some folks don't realize is that Hurricane Katrina, which was a hurricane that hit New Orleans in 2005, and also it was one of the most devastating hurricanes in the history of the United States. It produced catastrophic damage at an estimated $7 billion in New Orleans area and along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. The total amount of deaths from Hurricane Katrina were 1,200. Hurricane Sandy affected 24 states and all the along the eastern seaboard, 147 deaths in the Northeast United States, Canada, in the Caribbean resulted because of Hurricane Sandy. Boston was spared the most devastating effect of Hurricane Sandy due to the storm missing Boston's high tide by 5 hours. But the city still experienced high winds and coastal floodings. These are a result of climate change. However, we know that climate change is not a single special interest issue alone, but rather a complex crisis affecting public health, foreign policy, jobs, the economy, labor, civil rights, immigration, agriculture, food supply, housing, transportation, the very survival of nature. Certainly, climate change is the greatest existential threat to our existence. Historically, communities of color have not been deeply involved in the climate justice movement, as there are other immediate concerns that people of color must grapple with, such as racial injustice that monopolizes our attention, such as housing injustice, etc. I know that the present and future state of our world seems dark and hopeless. It seems like there are many floods of chaos, storms of confusion, winds of mayhem blowing in our world today. We see mass violence on the rise happening regularly, mass killings seemingly to happening weekly, a disregard for human life, a lack of concern for others playing out weekly in media highlights and spotlights. However, I am a prisoner of hope. It is only in the darkness that you can see the stars shine brightly, as Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King once said. And the stars that we need will only come about if love is present in our world, because we know that hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Love is justice is what love looks like in public, as Dr. Cornel West once said. In our world, what we need today is a moral critique of structural inequalities that suppress our fellow brothers and sisters. Simultaneously, we need people to come together from different walks of life to stand in solidarity on moral and social justice issues to help create a fusion movement. Fusion is just another word for diverse. In this fight for environmental justice and for climate justice, we must persist in ensuring that frontline communities connect with suburban communities, connect with indigenous communities, that also connect with coastal communities, and connecting to this larger issue of environmental justice in order for our work to be effective in continuing to make headway in not only the State House, but the White House. Yes, we do have an environmental justice bill here in Massachusetts, but the work is not done. We still need folks from every corner of the Bay State to come together. I'm reminded of the parable of the persistent widow in Luke 18. Simply put, because of the widow's persistence, the Gospel of Luke chapter 18, because of the widow's persistence, the judge acquiesced to her desires because she was persisting in advocating what she needed. And when we are persistent, brothers and sisters, in connecting with Black and brown community, indigenous communities, frontline community, coastal communities, then radical and systemic change will come. See, I know there's power when we come together. See, I know it biblically because when I saw Moses and his rod connect with Aaron, his brother, and they went and told Pharaoh, let the children of Israel go, and eventually change happened as the Israelites all believed in one vision of freedom. I know it biblically because I saw David connect with his slingshot, and connect with and flung that rock, and he hit the giant that colossal giant known as Goliath. And it read in the Jerusalem newspaper the next day, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. I know there's power when we come together. Historically, I know there's power when we come together, because the civil rights movement is a demonstration of a fusion movement. And we saw that when Rosa Parks declared by her actions that enough is enough and she will not acquiesce to racial injustice by giving up her seat, but she's going to stand on righteous ground, she refused to give up. Then it was in her standing/sitting that sparked a movement that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was pulled into, that, and also others like A. Philip Randolph and C.T. Vivian and John Lewis and Fannie Lou Hamer and Ella Baker and Rabbi Joshua Heschel and some other Jewish rabbis and some other Quakers and some wonderful UUs connecting with some lawyers and some doctors and some janitors and some dentists that said enough is enough. Racial injustice has gone on far too long, and we will stand with those who are disproportionately affected by racial injustice and saying enough is enough, and we need radical change and the policy level. And then that led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 being passed, not because of one person alone, not because of one group in a silo, but when people came together. That's when a radical systemic change happened. I know it to be true biblically. There's power when people come together. I know it to be true historically. There's power when people come together. I also know it to be true, even in these times, that we understand that the Raise Up Coalition, which was made up of labor groups, union groups, civil rights activist groups, and faith groups, and said that low-wage workers should be paid and 15 an hour should be the very minimum, even though that's not enough to live in the Bay State, but workers should be treated as humans and not necessarily as means of production. And we need to ensure that from a policy level that workers are paid a higher wage. And then it led to the grand bargaining passing in 2017 and the minimum wage raising in Massachusetts incrementally. So I know there's power historically, concurrently, biblically, when folks come together. And this fusion movement, and I'm getting ready to leave y'all alone now, but this fusion movement will only happen when the peace activists join hands with the climate justice activists, join hands with Black Lives Matter activists, join hands with faith activists, join hands with people of goodwill activists, and those same hands join and connect descendants of slave and slave owners, and those same hands connect with human rights activists, and those same hands connect with youth activists, and those same hands connect with social justice activists, and those same hands connect with elected officials who are public servants activists. And when those hands join together, then the arc of the moral universe can be bent towards justice. It is when those hands join together that then there will be a revival of love, joy, hope that will lead to the creation of the beloved kingdom where all people can be loved and valued and accepted regardless of their color, regardless of their creed, regardless of their gender, regardless of their sexuality. It is then when all these hands connect that then a radical and systemic change will happen. And this is the hope that guides me. This is the hope that can guide us in these challenging times. So as we close out, and I'm gonna leave y'all alone, but as we close out and as we remember Earth Day, let us not forget that we are good to be good stewards of the earth. And the Christian tradition, there is this responsibility that is given to humans to be good stewards of the earth. And even if you don't identify with that tradition, let us not forget to be good stewards of the earth for our children's sakes. And I'm going to leave y'all alone, but I appreciate being here with you all. I appreciate working on for racial and social justice with you all. And let us continue. And I know the congregation, we're going to miss Reverend John, but he won't retire from social justice work. He may move on to another ministry, or he may move on to another phase of work. But let us not forget the teaching that we are the change that we want to see. God bless you today.
Have to unmute. The control of nature is a phrase conceived in arrogance, born of the Neanderthal age of biology and philosophy, when it was supposed that nature exists for the convenience of man. Rachel Carson.
One more time, everybody. Let's give it up for Vernon Walker. We may have gone virtual, but there's still plenty of room for verve and vivacity. And thank you, Vernon, for not letting us go too soon. We appreciate it so very much. And thanks for your kind words to this congregation and to Annie and to me. And absolutely, I look forward to our getting into some good trouble together again in the not too distant future. There's plenty of good trouble to be found.
I just want to express my gratitude to Reverend Walker, and I get it how, frankly, Black people will go through holy hell naked, because at the Black churches, it's told like it is, and it's told with the passion that it deserves. Thank you, Reverend Walker.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else? Wave your hand. Corinne, why don't we go with you next?
Vernon, I loved your powerful message, and I also really, really loved your passion in delivering it. And the thing is, it struck me viscerally, it struck me emotionally, and it made me reflect that when I talk about climate with other people, that it's really important to connect emotionally with that passion, not just to talk about facts and such, but to drum up that feeling about how we can join hands together, work together. So thank you very much.
Abby, I see your hand up, so why don't you go ahead and unmute?
I have unmuted, and I would just like to ask Reverend Walker a little bit more of, I guess, a general thought question about communities of color and solar power. It tends to be something that people who adopt solar tend to be homeowners in the suburbs, and there have to be ways for this to get into the broader world. And so I thought I would ask him just for some reflections on that.
And Vernon, there you go.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the question, Abigail. Thank you all for the previous folks who have provided some their thoughts. I think one of the ways in which solar could become uplifted more is particularly through anchoring institutions such as faith, such as the Black Church, or connecting with houses of worship in the Black community and communities of color, because there's still one of the most trusted organizations and entity in the community. And even though America is becoming less and less religious, according to several studies, particularly for the Black Church, I think that's still a hub where information could be disseminated, and that's still a hub where folks who are interested in helping introduce solar power into communities of color and homeowners, because there are several different homeowners. I mean, there are folks quite a few folks who own homes in communities of color, even though redlining is still, economical injustice is still present in our world, and redlining did I go over? Someone muted me. All right, we're good now? All right, someone may have accidentally hit the mute button. So I think one of the ways is looking at community anchoring institutions, Abigail. And there could be the churches, there could be community organizations, neighborhood councils. And I think connecting with, I think it is important to do an asset mapping. I know one particular group. I actually worked with them a couple of summers ago. They were home energy heat efficiency, heat. A woman, I think her name was Audrey Smith, started that. When we went into a community, we went to the Roxbury Presbyterian Church, and we were the pastor Liz Walker, Reverend Liz Walker, and I remember we went and she was doing assessments of. So I was helping her connect with some houses of worship, but I was there for a brief capacity, in a brief time. But I think what we, to answer that question, I think identifying community anchoring institutions, faith communities, neighborhood councils, community organizations, and connecting with them and serving and connecting with them in the hopes of disseminating that information so homeowners can get access to that information and get those solar panels installed. That was a great question. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Vern. Dorothy, your hand is up next.
Having a hard time getting myself unmuted, but I think it worked. I just wondered, Reverend Vernon, this is kind of off the immediate topic of the day, but last year we had a little Juneteenth celebration in Bedford at the church, because we had we're very close to the old cemetery, which has an African reservation where there were Black members of people living in Bedford buried. And I was just wondering if you knew of some plans. I'd like to see if we could, First Parish could connect to some kind of a larger Juneteenth celebration. And I wondered if you have any happy thoughts on that you could pass along.
Yeah, so let me ask you, this is a great question, Dorothy. The celebration of Juneteenth, looking to celebrate it in New Bedford or to, because there are like a bunch of, well, last year was virtual, but historically there's been a bunch of like celebrations in Boston, for an example, around Juneteenth and other cities across the country. So is it a localized celebration in the community that you are thinking about helping folks celebrate?
I'm open to suggestion. I think certainly I'd like to see something done in Bedford to commemorate people, but I'd like to think that we could also connect more. It seems like such a little silo, everybody having their own little Juneteenth celebration. It'd be nice to connect to some other groups, do something a little bigger than just us.
Well, I think I know some folks who, well, I don't know, I have to double check to see if folks are planning what they're planning this year, but I would be happy to, once I find out that information, I'll be happy to do some connecting.
Oh, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure, no worries. And maybe somebody can drop an email and I can look into that and get back to folks via email.
Great.
Thanks, Dorothy. Cecile, did I see you waving your hand too?
Yeah, I was wondering maybe I should just let others have a question. If there's a lot of line, I don't have to ask mine.
No, go ahead, Cecile.
Okay.
The floor and your mic is open. It's all yours.
All right. Hi, Reverend Walker. I'm actually really interested in what you said about coming together and working together. And I'm with the Environmental Justice Committee of the church, and we're active with UU Mass Action. You may know Laura Wagner. And a lot of the actions are legislative actions. And I'm just wondering if there's anything more we can do besides that in actually, and maybe you can say, what is the most pressing need? You did say housing and, property. But as far as environmental climate justice is concerned, where can we connect? And if you have any ideas, and who, I guess, besides the solar panel, which was asked before, but is there anything more besides going to the State House that we can do to support our communities of color? And
well, that's a great. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I know there's groups like ACE, for an example, in Roxbury that do like environmental toxic tours, or they did before the pandemic, but they're still around. ACE, because we know that Roxbury has an asthma rate 6 times higher than the state average. So I think
that ACE?
ACE, yes, Alternatives Community Energy out in Roxbury. I think also connecting with groups that may not do environmental justice, but have like, for example, Chelsea Green Roots or Neighbor to Neighbor. You know, they are groups that do environmental justice work, but also do racial justice work. I think that, and UU Mass Action is a good way to connect in on the legislative front. I think for racial justice issues, I know there's a few campaigns going on around that. One is renaming Faneuil Hall. I don't know if the New Democracy is Kevin Peterson still on, but there's an effort the New Democracy Coalition is deeply involved in trying to rename Faneuil Hall. So I think just looking at ways of intersectionality, I guess more so what I'm pointing at. I know at Crew, the communities responding to extreme weather where I am, we do intersectionality panels, and we try to work with groups. So one panel we did, we worked with a housing group, we worked with a peace group, Mass Peace Action was one, Douglas Square, Douglas Street Neighborhood Initiative, or Douglas Square Neighborhood Initiative. So I think connecting with groups who do grassroots things. You know, I'm also part of the Sierra Club. I'm one of the executive board members there, and we're trying in Massachusetts. We're trying to diversify that organization one day at a time. But it's a great organization. Even though historically some issues to wrestle with, but there's an organization that's doing some good environmental work. So I think maybe even looking in, you know, the Raise Up Coalition, they're still working on legislation. They were also part of helping pay family sick leave pass. I didn't mention that, but the same coalition that was responsible for helping get the minimum wage raised particularly for low-wage workers, also was responsible for helping pay family medical sick leave, which is our state's version of paid medical family, FEMA, Family Emergency Medical Act, or leave. So yeah, I think just like looking at, because in the ecosystem of the social justice world, there's a lot of different justice groups. Hope I was able to answer your question.
Thank you, Vernon. I see Doug Denny Brown and also Janet Powers have their hand raised. And maybe Richard after that.
Okay. Oh, hi, am I on? Okay. Apologies for my Sunday appearance. But I guess my question is, in light of all of the issues going on, swirling around us today in the media, I wonder, you seem like a very upbeat person and obviously a person of faith, but I wonder if you could just reflect on some mantras or some ways that you keep yourself, you're personally motivated in the face of all of this adversity and violence against humans, particularly minorities, climate change, and so much else going on. It often doubles my resolve, but it often weakens my resolve. And so I wonder if you could just speak to that a bit.
Oh yes, thank you for the question, and that is real. I think one of the ways I keep myself grounded or find hope is in the scriptures. That, you know, that justice has always been fought, but it has never ultimately been lost. Justice may have been beaten down, but it has never perpetually lost. There may have been moments where injustice has seemingly held its foot on the neck of justice, but justice has always risen like the phoenix in some form or fashion. It may be delayed, but never denied. It may take me a little longer to shine forth. You know, particularly when we think of, you know, racial justice. You know, this has been a century-long fight. You know, this country has been founded on colonialism and Columbus taking the pillage and pillaging from the Native Americans. So one of the ways I keep myself grounded is scriptures and reading books. I'm actually reading this interesting book now. It's very I don't know if y'all can see this, but it says climate, church, and climate world, how people of faith must work for change. This is Jim Antal, Reverend Jim Antal, who used to be the former head of the UCC in Massachusetts. So, you know, various types of readings, and also being realistic that, you know, because we live in an unjust and unequitable society, that there will be moments where injustice continues to happen, but in spite of, you know, just trying to figure out how to work with folks to challenge these injustices that persist in our society. Such one example, it's an awful shame when Black and brown men, for an example, Black and brown people get killed because of state-sanctioned violence. But it's not new. It's, you know, before you had Jim and Jan Crow, you had lynching. We have the mass prison industrial complex, mass incarceration. But I think that because of these injustices that persist, that we must continue to fight nonviolently, and we must continue to organize. And I think that when I look at these movements that have produced systemic change and radical change, you know, at the heart of it, I see organizing, and organizing among the racial divide, organizing among or folks organizing among racial divides, such as we mentioned earlier, the civil rights movement, the women's suffrage movement, which I did not mention earlier. You know, these are movements that embody, and, you know, folks recognizing that our humanity is shared, that we have a shared humanity. And I realize that won't, you know, getting people to understand that we have a shared humanity takes a lot of work. Particularly, there are people who profit off of poisoning air and polluting water. You know, there are fossil fuel companies that profit off the destruction of frontline communities, and they don't want to give up the money, particularly when we live in a capitalistic society. So because, you know, I like what Dr. King said, that we need a revolution of values. He talked about a radical redistribution of the wealth. I'm also hopeful about the Poor People's Campaign, you know, led under the Reverend Dr. William Barber and Reverend Dr. Liz Steele Harris. And I think they have a good model. You know, I think that there's a model in place where inviting people to come out of their silos. And I was in Washington in 2018 when they had the big 15,000 or so people that was there. You know, and then all the states had the various, like, 6 weeks of moral action, but that needs to continue in a sense of we need to continue to dramatize these conditions. And, you know, I think that, you know, when we saw the rise of former President Donald Trump, we saw the rise of authoritarianism, of hatred, and fortunately, we were able to beat back with mass amount of people voting. We will be able to beat back that hate agenda, that hate mongering, etc. But the work is not done because there are still those extremist groups that exist. So essentially, what gives me hope, and I know I've been verbose here, but what gives me hope is my faith and working and knowing that there are people of goodwill. You know, that's how I met Reverend Gibbons through the Moral Monday, which was part of what was that predated the Poor People's Campaign. And I'm just hopeful that, you know, that we will continue, that people, you know, goodwill across the divide will continue to stand on issues, even if it doesn't affect them. For an example, if it's a women's rights issue, then I should be present, you know, if I can, and if I'm able, I should be able to stand in solidarity, you know, with, you know, trying to help close the pay gap, for an example. Because, you know, like Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is the threat to justice everywhere. So I think once people began to continuously realize that we ought to stand not only proxy, but we ought to stand in lockstep with issues that even if it doesn't quite affect us, for an example. So what ultimately gives me hope is rooted in my faith.
Thanks, Vernon.
Thank you.
It's funny you should mention Jim Antal along the way. He was one of our last in-person preachers. just before we went virtual. I went to jail with Jim at one point, and right now the daughter of one of our parishioners is living in the Antall house while she's going to school, rented a room with the Antall family. So there's all kinds of intersectionality going on here. And I'm going to turn it over to Janet and then to Richard Leshak.
Hi, Reverend Walker. Thank you so much. Hope, fusion movement. These are a couple things that I'll take away and carry with me. I have a very specific question because I have this vague recollection from seeing you speak about 3 years ago, and you were talking about what crew was doing, and you were talking about depaving. So I've got a few questions. Are you doing it still?
Yes. Well, so we have a team in Somerville. They haven't really done it in person in a while, but the team is still around. Yes.
Okay, so team's still going, and once COVID and in-person stuff, maybe we'll keep going. So my questions are, how's it going? And is there any recommendations, suggestions, or openings for partnering with groups who are doing this with your crew that is actually working on this very specific
yes.
action?
Yes. Well, we have a hub program at Crew. We have a hub program. We have about 61 hubs. Hubs are organizations that have a physical space that's meeting some type of specific need in the community, whether economical, social, psychological, spiritual, etc. So we have about 28 in Massachusetts. And if First Parish wanted to become a hub, I can, connect folks with the coordinator that works specifically with that. But to your point, I'll be happy to connect folks with our Somerville folks and get some recommendations. If there's a depaving, historically, what the depaving has done is private properties. We haven't really, taken out shovels, even though we believe in civil disobedience. We haven't taken out shovels and going beating up streets and sidewalks. But mostly what has been is depaving people's private property. And they normally take the concrete and turn it, after it gets depaved, turn it into green space or something of that nature. So we still work with our team there. If there's a way, if folks in New Bedford are interested, or if you're interested in connecting, be happy to connect you with some folks there. I know it has been suspended for the in-person stuff, but I think as more and more people are getting vaccinated, and we're slowly coming out of this pandemic, we definitely do see ourselves continuing to engage in person. And then even people can even social distance in a way where people can wear a mask. We have hard hats. So so if that's something you like to connect, happy to do that. So I think that is important, particularly for communities, especially for communities that are urban heat islands.
Absolutely.
Janet, did you get your questions asked there?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm going to bring the curtain down in about 5 minutes for this section, but let's go over to Richard Leshak.
Reverend Walker, now this is not a question, but very briefly, I want to thank you so much for sharing with us so deeply. And when you addressed us as sisters and brothers of the times, that went deep into my soul, and the tears started flowing. Again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, brother. Glad to be here with you.
Thank you. I'll do one last scan. Brad, do you see anybody else here?
I see no one.
Okay. Well, let's one more time give thanks to Vernon for being with us today. Yes. We'll see you in the streets or in the unpaved areas of town. We're looking forward to working together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you again, Vernon.